And John chapter 13 is really famous for Jesus choosing the path of humble service. So I want to connect those two things with us today. So I need to say something really important. Jesus was fully human and fully divine, limiting himself to his humanity, because twice in this chapter he encourages us to do exactly what he's been doing. And if what he was doing was coming out of his being God, he would be setting us up for the impossible. But if it comes out of Jesus as a spiritually and emotionally mature human, setting aside his godness for the time being, which is what Philippians tells us he did. He set aside his claim to be God, to be an example for us. So in chapter 13, we're dealing with Jesus being an example for us. Let's take a look at, as we step into that, Jesus makes an important choice. And we find that in the first 5 verses. Before the Passover celebration, emotional thing number 1. Jesus knew that his hour was come to leave this world and return to his Father. He knew the departure was going to happen, and he knew that it would be happening with anxiety. He had been told that the cross was what lay ahead of him. So you can pull the emotions when he knew that now's the time. We go on from there, and it says it was time for supper, and the devil had already prompted Judas, son of Iscariot, to betray Jesus. What emotions would there have been in knowing that you're heading into this meal and one of these people is about to stab you in the back? Might be some frustration. Might be some disappointment that he was making that choice. There may be some anger there. All legitimate things that Jesus was dealing with. And it says, Jesus knew the Father had given him authority over everything and that he had come from the Father and would return to God. So he got up from the table. I missed one there. Back to verse 1, it says, he loved his disciples during his ministry on earth, and now he wanted to show them the full extent of his love. Another emotion that was there. A tremendous love for these people that he was sharing this meal with. So he got up from the meal, and he wrapped a towel around his waist, and he took the position of a humble servant/slave. And he made a significant choice. Jesus chose to wash the disciples' feet. In that choice, he showed us that spiritually and emotional maturity will allow us to pick from the best emotions. A spiritually and emotionally mature person can sift through the different things that are going on inside of them and can humbly choose servanthood, can make that right choice. Does that make sense? And he chose. He said, of all the things going on inside of me, I'm aware of them all, and I choose to demonstrate love. And so he washed his disciples' feet. And as he washed their feet, something else happened. As he washed their feet, he came to the point where he made that choice of humility. He began to wash the disciples' feet. And we read that he took Peter. And he came to Peter, and what happened? Are you familiar with the story? Peter said, hey, not just my feet. Wash all of me. Let me read for you exactly what happened there. No, Peter protested. You will never wash my feet. Jesus replied, Unless I wash them, you won't belong to me." Simon Peter exclaimed, "Then wash my hands and my head as well, Lord, not just my feet." Jesus replied, "A person who has a bath, who has bathed all over, does not need to wash except his feet. So he will be entirely clean. The disciples are you disciples are clean, but not all of you." For Jesus knew who would betray him. That is what he meant when he said, "You are not all clean." After washing their feet, he put the robe back on again and sat down. Do you understand what I was doing? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right to do so, because that is what I am. And since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. I have given you this example to follow. Do as I have done to you. I tell you the truth. Slaves are not greater than their masters, nor is a messenger more important than the one that sent the message. Now you will be blessed by these things. God will bless you for doing them. Your feet are not enough. But spiritually and emotionally mature people clean up regularly. Catch what Jesus is saying here. He's saying internally, because you're my disciples, you're already clean. But as you go through the day, stuff comes at you from life. As you go through the day, little things can pick at you, and you pick up the challenges of this world. You go through the day and you lose your temper. Or you say something you shouldn't have said. And Jesus illustrates with Peter that we don't need to come back to Jesus, and we don't need to ask for full forgiveness and eternal life all over again. He's given us that. But we do need, from time to time, to just stop and regularly take account. Take that moment at the end of the day. Take that moment 3 or 4 times through the day. Take that moment every hour if you need to. And say, I just want to clean up my heart, my attitude, my mind. I just need you to wash my feet, Jesus. Not only that, but he tells his disciples that we need to do that for each other. Someone comes to us and says, "Man, what I said was really out of line." And you can say, "Yeah, it was. But I forgive you for it. Let's move on." But I forgive you for it. Let's move on. We need to be able, if we're going to be emotionally and spiritually mature and be able to be the kind of people Jesus wants us to be, we need to be able to clean those things out and put them in the past. Because what happens when a hurt between two people doesn't get cleaned out? If it isn't cleaned out, it's going to show up again. In washing the feet, Jesus tells us not only being a servant and choosing humility, but humility when it comes to emotional turmoil means setting aside the hurts and mending the relationship. So Jesus washes all the disciples' feet. And that brings us to the third big thing today. Let me read for you verse 18. I'm not saying these things to all of you. I know the ones I have chosen. But this fulfills the scripture. The one who eats my food has turned against me. I tell you beforehand, so that when these things happen, you will know that I am the Messiah. I tell you the truth. One who welcomes my messenger is welcoming me, and anyone who welcomes me is welcoming the Father who sent me. Now Jesus was deeply troubled, and he exclaimed, I tell you the truth, one of you is going to betray me. Third lesson that Jesus teaches us here. Spiritually and emotionally mature people don't hide their feelings. Jesus didn't hide the fact that he was troubled because one of those people gathered around that table with him were about to betray him. He says it very clearly. He says, now I'm really troubled, and one of you is going to betray me. You know, there are times where we don't want to deal with conflict, so we stuff the feelings down. We hide them. Or am I the only one who's ever done that? We stuff them down and we hide them, and then they just burst out all over the place. But Jesus says, spiritually mature, number one, they don't bury it. But number two, they don't blame. Take a look at what happens here. What was the disciples' response when Jesus said, one of you is going to betray me? Now, he'd just gone around the circle. He just washed all their feet. He treated them with all the same grace, except for Peter, who complained, so Jesus had to talk to him directly. And take a look at the disciples' response. The disciples looked at each other and wondered who he could mean. Jesus tells us that when we approach life from a spiritually and emotionally maturing place, our emotions don't burst out and point the finger of blame. He didn't throw Judas under the bus. If it was me, y'all might know who Judas was. It would have shown on my face when I went to wash his feet as opposed to everybody else's. It would have shown perhaps in my body language. But Jesus, from his human, spiritually and emotionally mature place, treated all of the disciples the same. So that when he said, one of you is going to betray me, they didn't know who. Isn't that amazing? Can you imagine the capacity to do that? Jesus goes on from there. And he gives the disciples a commandment to move forward with. This one is probably familiar with you. If you take a look at John chapter 13, verses 34 and 35, he talks about his death for a while, and then he says in verse 33, Dear children, I will not be with you much longer. As I told you, the Jewish leaders who you search for, you cannot come where I'm going. And then he says, so I'm giving you a new commandment. Love each other just as I have loved you. You should love one another. Your love for one another will be proof that you are my disciples. Spiritual and emotional maturity looks like Jesus. This is the key point in this passage. He says, I've done this because I've loved you. I have chosen the path of humility and chosen to respond to my best emotions because I love you. I've chosen to tell you that things can be forgiven and cleansed and you don't need to pull everything out you need to deal with the issue. He said, I choose that because I love you. I've washed your feet. I've told you little things need to be cleaned up. I've told you that I won't betray. person who's going to betray me. And I won't bury those emotions and I won't hide them, but I will deal with them without blame because I love you. And then he says to his disciples, and down through the ages, he says to his church, and he says to us today, now, as you mature spiritually, as you mature emotionally, you go out and you love with that kind of love. You be the person who chooses the best of your emotions and responds humbly to those. You be the person who cleans up and keeps short accounts. You be the person who doesn't bury your feelings, but doesn't use them to blame either. And if you live in relationship that way, you're going to reflect me, and people are going to know that you're my disciples. These are the things Jesus says about emotional maturity. Now, it's fascinating. Peter, who's always ready to grab the next thing and run with it. Peter is so intently thinking about the fact that Jesus said he's going somewhere that Peter can't go. He's so captivated by that urgent thing that Jesus said he's going to go somewhere that he can't go, that he misses the most important thing. Peter's response has nothing to do with what Jesus said about love. Peter's response is, wait, what do you mean you're going somewhere that I can't go? Look, I will go anywhere. I'll die for you, Jesus. Jesus looks at him and says, unfortunately, Peter, you don't have what it takes yet. As a matter of fact, before this night's over, Peter, unfortunately, you're going to let yourself down. And you're going to deny me 3 times. Because, see, having Jesus' example of emotional and spiritual maturity is absolutely great. We can develop emotional maturity on our own as we learn to deal with life and with the help of friends. But spiritual maturity only comes from the Spirit of God. Spiritual maturity only comes as we allow the Spirit of Jesus into our lives. And I will say more about that next week, because John chapter 14 deals with the connection with God and with His Holy Spirit. But I want to tell you that if you've come to a place in your life where you've said, Jesus, I love you, I need you, I invite you to come into my life, I realize what you did on the cross, the sacrifice that you made for me is enough. Then you're at a point where His Spirit, the presence of His Spirit, enters you. And as the presence of Jesus' Spirit enters you, He begins to take you on a path to maturity that will allow you more and more, will allow me more and more every day to become a little more capable of the things that He did in John chapter 13. It will allow us to become more and more capable of choosing to respond from the right emotions, of choosing to keep short accounts, and those daily, bi-daily, hourly, whatever it needs to be, cleanups. He will give us a place where we can fully identify our difficult emotions, but not use them to blame or point fingers at others. And He will help us to be people who reflect Him to a world that desperately needs to see Him. And it all begins when we say, Jesus, I know I need you. Please come into my life. Allow your Spirit to be part of my life. And allow me to begin the process of maturing. Because Jesus' target for us all is to deal with life from a place of being emotionally and spiritually maturing. Amen? Later on that night, Jesus or during that evening, Jesus had supper with his disciples, and we celebrated as communion. And I'm going to invite the deacons who are involved in communion to come and join me here as we bow in prayer. Let's pray together.